My first time smoking weed.
Yo, let's rewind back to the late 80s, early 90s. Picture Los Angeles, South Central, Compton, Watts, where the streets were alive with energy but also tension. The city was a patchwork of hope and hardship, where music was more than just a soundtrack, it was a lifeline, a way to tell the world what was really going down. N.W.A was on fire, man. They were changing the game with their raw, unapologetic lyrics about street life. These guys weren't just making music, they were making a statement, holding up a mirror to the world and forcing people to see the reality of life in the hood. Their words hit hard, and their beats hit even harder. Straight Outta Compton became an anthem. It was more than just a record, it was a cultural earthquake. Suddenly the whole country was paying attention to what was happening in these neighborhoods. The album gave a voice to the voiceless, and for a lot of people, it was the first time they felt truly seen and heard. But behind the scenes, things were getting messy. Dr. Dre, the mastermind behind their sound, wasn't happy. He felt trapped by the contracts at Ruthless Records, held back by Jerry Heller. Tensions were high, money was tight, egos were clashing, and the business side of things started to overshadow the music. Dre was pouring his soul into the beats, but he wasn't seeing the rewards. The pressure was building, and something had to give. Ice Cube had already bounced, fed up with the business side of things. He saw the writing on the wall and decided to take his own path, leaving behind the group that helped put him on the map. His departure sent shockwaves through the crew, and it was a wake-up call for Dre. If Cube could walk away, maybe he could too. Dre saw the writing on the wall. He knew he had to make a move. The creative spark that once fueled N.W.A was starting to flicker, and Dre wasn't about to let his talent go to waste. He spent long nights in the studio, thinking about his next step, weighing the risks and rewards. The decision wasn't easy, but deep down, he knew he was destined for more. Dre wanted creative control. He wanted to own his music, and he definitely wanted to get paid what he deserved. For too long, he'd watched others profit off his genius, while he was left fighting for scraps. He dreamed of a place where artists could be free, where the music came first, and where he could finally call the shots. So, in 1991, he made a bold decision. He left N.W.A and Ruthless Records behind. It was a huge risk, but Dre had a vision. He was ready to build something new, something entirely his own. Walking away from everything he'd helped create wasn't easy, but sometimes you have to burn bridges to light the way forward. Dre stepped out into the unknown, fueled by ambition and a hunger to prove himself all over again. He linked up with Suge Knight, a powerful and controversial figure in the industry. Suge was known for his muscle and his business savvy, and together they were a force to be reckoned with. Their partnership was electric, dangerous even, but it was exactly what Dre needed to shake up the game. Together they formed Death Row Records, a label that would become synonymous with West Coast hip-hop. Death Row wasn't just a record label, it was a movement. It attracted some of the most talented, hungry, and controversial artists of the era. The energy was raw, the stakes were high, and the world was watching as Dre set out to redefine the sound of a generation. With a new label and a chip on his shoulder, Dre was ready to unleash his masterpiece. He poured everything he had into the music, determined to prove that he was more than just a member of N.W.A. This was his shot at greatness, and he wasn't about to let it slip away. The world was about to hear a new sound, one that would change hip-hop forever. Now let's dive into the story behind the name The Chronic. At first glance it might just seem like a clever title for a hip-hop album, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. The name itself is a layered statement loaded with meaning and attitude, and it set the tone for everything that followed. The Chronic wasn't just a catchy phrase, it was a declaration. It was a way for Dr. Dre to announce his arrival as a solo artist, and to let the world know that he was bringing something new, potent, and unforgettable to the table. The name itself became a symbol of authenticity and street credibility. In the early 1990s, Chronic was the word on the street for the highest quality marijuana you could find. It was the kind of weed that was legendary in its potency, something you didn't just smoke, but experienced. The Chronic was a nod to that culture, a wink to those in the know, and a way to connect with listeners who understood the reference. And make no mistake, Dre was no stranger to the scene. He knew his weed, and he knew the culture that surrounded it. The Chronic wasn't just an album title, it was a lifestyle, a vibe, and a reflection of the world Dre was living in and rapping about. But the name went even deeper. It wasn't just about marijuana. It was about the raw, unfiltered reality of life in South Central Los Angeles. The Chronic captured the energy, the struggles, and the stories of a community that was often overlooked or misunderstood by the mainstream. Dr. Dre didn't shy away from the tough topics. Police brutality, gang violence, poverty, these weren't just background noise, they were front and center. Dre confronted these issues head-on, using his music as a platform to shine a light on the harsh realities faced by so many in his community. Even the album cover became iconic in its own right. With its bold, unmistakable design and the parental advisory sticker front and center, it was instantly recognizable. A visual warning that what you were about to hear was real, raw, and unapologetic. The imagery was simple: rolling papers, a lighter, and a bit of green. It was a nod to the culture, but also a statement of intent. There were no flashy graphics or over-the-top visuals, just the essentials, just the truth. The minimalism of the cover spoke volumes. It was a rejection of gimmicks and a focus on substance. The Chronic was about the music, the message, and the movement it represented. In many ways, the album was a warning shot to the entire music industry. It was Dre's way of saying, "I'm here, and I'm about to change the game." With The Chronic, Dr. Dre didn't just make an album, he made a statement. He redefined West Coast hip-hop, set a new standard for production, and left a mark that would influence generations to come. The early 90s was a time of transition for hip-hop. Public Enemy and KRS-One were dropping politically charged lyrics in the East. But on the West Coast, a new sound was emerging. N.W.A had paved the way with their gangsta rap, but Dre was about to take it to another level. He wasn't just talking about the streets, he was painting a vivid picture with his music. The music industry was starting to take notice of this West Coast sound. Labels were hungry for the next big thing, and Dre, with his innovative production and raw talent, was perfectly positioned to take the reins. Now let's break down the music. To truly understand the impact of West Coast hip-hop, you have to start with the sound itself, the way it felt, the way it moved people, and the way it changed the game forever. The Chronic wasn't just another hip-hop album, it was a sonic revolution. It captured the energy of Los Angeles in the early 90s, a city alive with creativity, tension, and a hunger for something new. The music pulsed through the streets, from car stereos to block parties, becoming the soundtrack of a generation. Dr. Dre pioneered a new sound that would define West Coast hip-hop for years to come: G-Funk. This wasn't just a style, it was a movement. G-Funk was smooth, melodic, and deeply rooted in the rhythms of the past, yet it felt entirely modern and innovative. He slowed things down, creating a smoother, more laid-back groove that contrasted sharply with the harder, faster beats coming out of the East Coast. The music invited you to lean back, nod your head, and get lost in the vibe. Dre sampled heavily from 70s funk and soul classics, digging deep into crates of vinyl to find the perfect sounds. These samples weren't just background noise, they were the heartbeat of the album, giving it a rich, textured feel that set it apart from anything else at the time. Parliament, Funkadelic, and George Clinton became major influences, their grooves and melodies woven into the DNA of the Chronic. The spirit of funk was alive and well, reimagined for a new era and a new audience. But Dre's genius wasn't just in the samples he chose, it was in how he used them. How he could take a familiar riff or a funky bass line and transform it into something completely original. He knew how to flip them, chop them up, and rearrange them into something entirely new. Every beat, every loop, every snare hit was carefully crafted, layered, and polished until it sounded just right. He layered his beats with deep rolling bass lines, funky guitar riffs, and melodic synthesizers that shimmered and danced over the top. The result was a sound that was lush, immersive, and instantly recognizable. Dre created a soundscape that was both familiar and fresh, something you could bump in your car as you cruise down the boulevard or blast at a house party with friends. The music brought people together, set the mood, and defined an era. The sound of the West Coast was here to stay, and it was impossible to ignore. So, lyrically, The Chronic was just as groundbreaking, you know? Dre brought together a crew of talented MCs, each with their own unique style. Snoop Doggy Dogg, a young rapper Dre had discovered, really stole the show with his smooth flow and vivid storytelling. His laid-back delivery contrasted perfectly with the album's hard-hitting beats. The lyrics were raw, unflinching, and honestly, often controversial. They reflected the realities of life in South Central Los Angeles. the good, the bad, and the ugly. Songs like Fuck With Dre Day and Nothing But a G Thang became anthems for a generation. They celebrated West Coast culture, while also addressing social issues like police brutality and racial profiling. The Chronic wasn't just Dr. Dre's solo debut, it was the launchpad for Snoop Doggy Dogg's career. Snoop's distinctive voice and, his effortless flow really captivated listeners. He became an instant star. His verses on songs like Nothing But a G Thang and Deep Cover were instant classics. Dre's mentorship was crucial to Snoop's success. He recognized Snoop's talent and gave him the platform to shine. Their chemistry was undeniable, and together they created some of the most iconic tracks in hip-hop history. The Chronic wasn't just an album, it was a cultural phenomenon. It topped the charts, went triple platinum, and solidified Dr. Dre's status as a hip-hop heavyweight. It also established Death Row Records as a major force in the music industry. The album's impact extended far beyond music. It influenced fashion, language, and even politics. It became the soundtrack to a generation, capturing the anxieties and aspirations of young Black America. The Chronic changed the game. It ushered in a new era of hip-hop, one that embraced West Coast gangsta rap and G-funk production. It influenced countless artists, from Nas and Jay-Z to Eminem and Kanye West. The album's legacy can still be felt today. Its beats have been sampled countless times, and its influence can be heard in the music of contemporary artists like Kendrick Lamar and YG. With The Chronic, Dr. Dre cemented his legacy as more than just a rapper. He became a visionary producer, a musical innovator, and a hip-hop mogul. He went on to discover and mentor some of the biggest names in the industry, including Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and 50 Cent. He founded Beats by Dre, a headphone and audio company that he later sold to Apple for billions. Dr. Dre's journey from N.W.A to The Chronic is a testament to his talent, his vision, and his unwavering determination. He didn't just change hip-hop, he shaped the sound of a generation, and that, my friends, is the legacy of The Chronic.